Galatians chapter 5, verses 20 and 21. Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanliness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murderers, drunkenness, revelings, and such like. Next work of the flesh up here is sedition. Sedition is an instigating action or speech designed to provoke people to rebel, to become an outlaw against authority. An example today would be Black Lives Matter, and Antifa, for instance. We won't spend any more time on that nonsense, but these are examples of today's seditions. King David's son, Absalom, conspired to take the kingdom from his father. You can read that here in 2 Samuel chapter 15, verses 1 through 4. And it came to pass after this, that Absalom prepared him chariots and horses, and 50 men to run before him. And Absalom rose up early, and stood beside the way of the gate, and it was so, that when any man that had a controversy came to the king for judgment, then Absalom called unto him, and said, Of what city art thou? And he said, Thy servant is of one of the tribes of Israel. And Absalom said unto him, See, thy matters are good and right, but there is no man deputed of the king to hear thee. Absalom said moreover, Oh, that I were made judge in the land, that every man which hath any suit or cause might come unto me, and I would do him justice. So Absalom used deceiving tactics in his sedition. He was a shyster and won the loyalty of the Israelite behind his father's back, King David's back. Go here to 2 Samuel 15, verses 11 through 17. And with Absalom went 200 men out of Jerusalem that were called, and they went in their simplicity, and they knew not anything. And Absalom sent for Ahithophel, the Gileonite, David's counselor, from his city, even from Gilo, while he offered sacrifices. And the conspiracy was strong, for the people increased continually with Absalom. And there came a messenger to David, saying, The hearts of men of Israel are after Absalom. And David said unto all his servants that were there with him at Jerusalem, Arise, and let us flee, for we shall not escape from Absalom. Make speed to depart, lest he overtake us suddenly, and bring evil upon us, and smite the city with the edge of the sword. And the king's servants said unto the king, Behold, thy servants are ready to do whatsoever my lord the king shall appoint. And the king went forth, and all his household after him. And the king left 10 women which were concubines to keep the house. And the king went forth, and all the people after him, and tarried in a place that was afar off. So through perseverance and great sedition, Absalom led the Israelites to flush out King David from the palace. King David fled for his life, sheltering in caves and pleading to God for understanding. But King David never stopped loving his son Absalom. Let's go to 2 Samuel. Go to 2 Samuel 18, verses 30 through 33. And the king said unto him, Turn aside and stand here. And he turned aside and stood still. And behold, Cushai came, and Cushai said, Tidings, my lord the king, for the Lord hath avenged thee this day of all them that rose up against thee. And the king said unto Cushai, Is the young man Absalom safe? And Cushai answered, The enemies of my lord the king, and all that rise against thee to do thee hurt, be as that young man is. And the king was much moved, and went up to the chamber over the gate, and wept. And as he went, thus he said, O my son Absalom, my son Absalom, would God I had died for thee, O Absalom, my son, my son. So David grieved and wept when the waves of battle killed his boy. And King David was restored, of course, to his rightful place, back in the palace, back as king. Let's read Luke 20, 21 through 24. And they asked him, saying, Master, we know that thou sayest and teachest rightly. Neither acceptest thou the person of any, but teachest the way of God truly. Is it lawful for us to give tribute under Caesar, or no? But he perceived their craftiness, and said unto them, Why tempt ye me? Show me a penny. Whose image and subscription hath it? They answered and said, Caesar's. So as we can see here, the chief priests tried to catch Jesus in a lie, turning against the government. In a form of sedition, the chief priests tried to trap Christ. And under the rule of the Romans, sedition was a crime. Rising over and above Roman authority was a serious crime. And we see in just then, in the reading of Luke 20, the Sanhedrin sent the scribes and chief priests to seditiously catch Jesus in a lie. Catching him lying, basically. Is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not? In that seditious statement, they hoped Jesus would say absolutely not, so they could call for the arrest for him, and then for defiance of Caesar, and hand him over to the power and authority of the governor. Now, of course, Jesus didn't fall into that trap. Give to Caesar's what's owed, and to God what's God's. Now, the Apostle Paul, well, he was accused of being a leader of sedition, for almost everywhere he preached. Riots at times broke out, of course, but Paul never taught sedition. He never fueled an overthrow of government. Let's go here to Acts chapter 24, verses 5 through 6. For we have found this man a pestilent fellow, and a mover of sedition among all Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes, who also hath gone about to profane the temple, whom we took, and would have judged according to our law. So yeah, they accused Paul of it too. Now, you know, and it's popular in today's belligerent society to run off at the mouth about the government in the States here. And that's for people that are all talk and no action. A servant of Jesus Christ obeys and respects authority. And of course, there are times when we must obey God rather than man. Now, don't be a sellout ever and choose to please man, man-made laws and ordinances over the Creator God's. Now we come to everyone's favorite label for those they disagree with: heresies. And a heresy is to preach another gospel. It's heretical because it teaches the heresy teaches the opposite of the pattern of sound doctrine. In the book of Revelation, for instance, boy, we make movie scripts with some of these interpretations. And you know, the Old Testament is the dictionary for the New Testament. And it's imperative to get an understanding of the Old Testament language, its symbolism and idioms, its Eastern idioms, and allegories to understand the New Testament. That's a lesson for another day. But there is another heresy out and about that's been a belief since the ministry of Jesus, and that's the good deeds and efforts of charity contribute to salvation. And an example is what we've been talking about in these past 5 chapters in Galatians. When Gentiles began to follow Christ, and of course they were uncircumcised, the Jews were trying to figure out how Old Testament laws applied to non-Jewish followers of Jesus. Now, did the Gentiles have to engage in the outward branding of circumcision and follow the traditions of the fathers, civil and oral Jewish customs in order to be equal members with the Jewish Christians? Christ fulfilled the Old Testament and was setting aside these particular laws that were for the Israelites in that period of time before Christ came and walked among man. Now, union with Christ is what qualifies a person for the promises of God, not law-keeping, works of laws. If you're in union with Christ, you know about them laws. They are a byproduct of the servant of Christ. Now, the Judaizers in their seditions didn't accept Christ alone and gave Paul issues, wrath, strife, emulations in all of his ministry travels. These Judaizers, and belief which holds that someone's good deeds or efforts contribute to salvation, is a modern-day Judaizer. Jesus Christ is all in all, not Christ plus. Let's move along to envy. Envy is desiring possession of another. Do you want your neighbor's truck because it's got a 2-inch lift kit and it sits higher than yours when it's side by side? You're an envy, partner. It's a dissatisfied longing for another's possessions or job, success, or their achievements. Envy is covetousness. Now, a servant of Christ needs the simple things in life. We don't need all these flesh pleasures that eat up all your earnings. For what? To impress others? Now, these material things people envy are out of Satan's sandbox. Every one of them take your mind off of reality, which is to serve the one true God, Jesus Christ, according to His Word. Read about how Jacob stole Esau's birthright and how Cain killed Abel, all out of envy. And people today will kill to have what they want. It doesn't take much to survive physically in this life. A 3-bedroom home across town might serve just as well as a nice brand new 3-bedroom home. You know, you can lose that home in a fire at any time. Yes, you got insurance, but it's not going to give you everything that thing's worth. My point is, possessions are just that. It's like everything you have can be gone as quick as just simply stepping on an anthill. It's a built-up little mound for the ant's home, and you step on it, it's gone. People are ate up with material things. Video games, cars, boats, food, shelter, clothing, and God's Word. Till next time.